The April 12th council briefing. We have a handful of items to go over with you tonight. I'm going to take items 1 and 2 and actually push those to the end of the agenda so we can dive right into some of the more important items first. Not that the first 2 aren't important, but I think that the community and council would probably like to start with number 3, which is an update on the Orange Crush Festival, which has been advertised by third-party promoters outside of our area. So I do have Chief Gene Paul Smith on the line tonight, and he has a presentation that he is going to go over with you and then open it up for Q&A. And I believe Jacob has control of the screen to actually put the slides up. So with that, Chief Smith, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate you giving me some time. I know we've all had, y'all have had some questions about this, and hopefully we'll get a bunch of questions answered tonight for you and those who are on tonight listening. First slide, next slide, Jacob, please. Okay, just so y'all know, this is the civilian, quote unquote, version of this briefing. We have a much more in-depth tactical and intelligence related briefing that we're doing for law enforcement only, and certain people in city government, and all that is, if anybody has any 50-foot questions or tactical questions or police contingency questions, I'll be glad to answer it offline tonight or another day privately. So a couple things. I learned about this on March the 7th, so we are plus a month into this now. And we were quietly planning it first. And part of the reason for that is I felt, and we felt, it was very important to message correctly. When I say message, make sure the employees, the elected officials, city government, we're all on the same sheet of music, and that we communicated this to the participants, to the businesses, to the citizens. So we got a consistent message. And I really am very pleased with the way this has worked out, because I think everybody involved has done an awesome job on messaging. I can't tell you how it positively affected everything so far that we've done. So a couple things I want to cover before we get started. We're not going to have any videos. I think everybody's seen the videos. If there's any questions, all you got to do is go to YouTube and Google Tybee Island Orange Crush, and you'll see all there is to see on the videos. That Monday, after I got the initial heads up, March the 9th, that would be, I immediately called Chief Bryson in Tybee Island, Georgia, and we had a long talk. He said, coincidentally, he's been waiting for my call for 10 years. And we had a little chuckle, and he wished us luck and said anything we need, he's there for us. We kind of came to the conclusion that we needed 2 things for the city. One is to be consistent with the message and the rules, whatever those are. They have drinking in public in Tybee Island. They tried to ban drinking in public in Tybee Island for this weekend alone. They had really no permitting procedures. They tried to require Orange Crush to have permitting procedures. So they weren't really being consistent. So that's the one thing we talked about. And the second point I would like to do throughout this, I want y'all to remember, if we draw a line in the sand somewhere, literally, and say, we will make arrests, we will enforce strict enforcement, public nudity, public sex, defecating in public, fights, violent behavior, whatever that is, whatever problems they've had up in Tybee, we have to be prepared to enforce that at all costs. We can, so wherever we draw the line and say this is where people are going to start going to jail, we've got to be ready to do that. We cannot let this get out of hand and walk away from that, because the first time we get driven away from a crowd and we can't make an arrest that we plan on making, we've lost control. We've also talked to some sources in Miami Beach and learned some interesting things, and we'll discuss that throughout this presentation. And I would like to say, I talked to the mayor earlier. She said we're working, the headline somewhere was we're working with the promoter. Well, That's probably an overstatement because we've had one meeting and 2 phone calls. And we have received no plans in concrete what's going to happen. So working with is probably an exaggeration. We've had a meeting with people claiming to be the promoter. And we believe they are indeed the promoter. So it's all very fluid right now. So with that, I'll start. Go to the next slide, Jacob. Okay, we'll start from the beginning. What is Orange Crush? It's been occurring for about 15 years. The last 10 years, it's been occurring at Tybee Island. For those of you old timers like me, it's a break off of Freaknik, which used to be held in Atlanta. A rap music week or weekend in Atlanta. And there's been one in Miami, and the offshoots mainly have gone to Tybee Island. And it draws tens of thousands of people, mainly African-American high school kids. That's who they're high school, college students. That's who they're targeting. It originally targeted historically Black colleges and students. It's quote, promotes preservation of urban culture, entertainment, media, live music, and education, etc. Next slide, please. This is George Turner, AKA Mikey. As best we can tell, we've done a lot of deep intel dives into all these people. And this is who was we found to be the main promoter, although there's other people claiming to be in charge. And that's part of our problem. It's part of their problem. It's not part of our problem. So he claims to be the primary promoter. The way he makes his money is most of these events are free, and he'll go to strip clubs, bars, and say, or restaurants or whatever business, and say, I brought in 15,000 people, you pay me a certain amount of cash, I'll make sure your bar is advertised in all our Orange Crush activities, and we'll pack the house for you for 3 nights. So that's how he makes his money. He was arrested in Tybee Island in 2019, and the event was canceled, and it really had no impact on the number of participants. And on a side note, Chief Bryson and we were warned to watch the Airbnbs, because that's where the house parties are. That's where back in the neighborhoods, hundreds of people. Matter of fact, in 19, Mikey, George Turner, was arrested at an open house party at an Airbnb, hundreds of people. There were so many people on the staircase in the Airbnb, it collapsed the staircase and caused a lot of damage. So Airbnbs is the second piece, and we're addressing that and letting all them know. Currently, in the mayor and Mike can probably give you more information. Most of the crews from Savannah that comes down, some from Atlanta, and it's been kind of declining in the last couple of years. And we think it's because, best we can tell, my intel guys can tell, Tybee Island kind of took a hands-off approach until the last 2, 3, 4 years. Then they really stepped up enforcement. You can tell by the arrest numbers, and that kind of made them find another place. So next slide, please. Okay, I'm not going to go too much into Stephen Smith. He came in and saw us 2 weeks ago, and he claimed to be in charge of Orange Crush. Said he bought the rights 3 years ago, and that Mikey's not in charge anymore. And so things have changed even since we created this PowerPoint. This just shows you we're kind of not sure who's in charge, and that explains a lot of the confusion, the conflicting statements. There really is no events. Everybody just kind of shows up at the beach. It's not really organized. And by the way, they've had no contact with any promoters in years past. Tybee reported, but because of our messaging and the pressure we put on them with social media, the media, everybody online, we forced them to come to the table and contact us. So that's one small example of our messaging, and our foundation that we laid for this event is paying off, because we got a lot of good intelligence. We forced them to the table. We're actually talking with them now, and we're talking with our businesses and our residents. Next slide, please. So this is just an example in 2019 of some of the stuff that was seized. On the left, bunch of guns, bunch of weed, and on the right, bunch of weed, bunch of drugs. Those of y'all are familiar, I told you, ATF told me personally that in Northeast Florida, we seize more guns than any other jurisdiction except for JSO. That includes Nassau County, St. Johns County, Clay County, and all the police departments. And it's because of our concentration of people to visit our city. So I don't expect to see a lack of guns during this weekend. Next slide's fine. So in 2019, I said they kind of put the hammer down. They had 81 arrests. By the way, Tybee Island has about 15 officers. They bring in a lot from Georgia State Patrol, GSP. On average, there are 40 to 60 arrests every day, mostly drug possession, DUI. There's been a history of some shootings, a lot of sexual batteries, property crimes, a lot of traffic problems, also sex in public, nudity in public, and public defecation. Also, they have problems with, you can see this photo, pop-up dance contest, twerk contest. There's a video online. This is in the middle of their main road, kind of like their first street. 4 or 5 or 8 or 6 cars will stop. They'll start dancing, and it assembles a crowd. And of course, there's problems with that. So these are some of the things that they've experienced in Tybee over the years. And to be very honest, it's not different than some of the things we've experienced here with our large crowds. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just some of the things on a strategic level that we're looking at doing. Treat this event like the 4th of July from an enforcement perspective. For instance, on the 4th of July, I can't arrest every single person that's got a red Solo cup drinking in public. I could have 2,000 policemen, I still couldn't do it. So we're going to decide as a city where we're going to draw the line, where we're going to make physical arrests. And I made some suggestions, further 2 or 3 points down. But we want a large visible presence, or at least that's what I'm recommending. And we want the 3 beaches agencies to be the face of this from an enforcement perspective. Of course, with our mutual aid partners, which we have already been in talks with the sheriff's office. I've talked to the sheriff and highway patrol colonel personally, and we're getting resources for them. The problem is I don't know really what to expect yet, so we're building a foundation. For instance, we reached out to Miami Beach. They arrested 1,050 people in the first week, a couple weeks ago. We found out from them they ran out of female police officers to help pat down and process all the female arrestees. So that's one thing we learned from them. Also, the use of pepper ball, less lethal devices was very important to them. So we're learning from that. So we want a robust traffic piece. We want a robust corrections and booking and arrest piece. And we're also, as you know, all 70 of my officers are trained in mobile field force. We have that, our officers, but I'm also getting a separate field force contingent that'll be parked off venue, standing by in case we need them. So those are some of the examples of the things we're doing, which is pretty extensive. You know, this turned into a July 4th in Jack's Beach event planning into an air show type event. We're gonna have a full command post up and running and everything for the weekend. So some of the things that I suggested we go strict enforcement on is violent behavior, public sex, urinating in public, blatant urinating in public, defecating in public, open house parties, DUI, and other blatant violations of some city ordinances and state law. And remember, whatever we draw the line with, we have to enforce. If we say you will be arrested for sex in public, we have to be ready to effect those arrests at all costs. We're updating trespass affidavits on all the abandoned properties so we can warn people. We're worried about pop-up events in all the street ends. I'm very concerned about the street ends. You can fit 30 cars in there. Someone turns up a stereo and boom, it's a party. We're also getting trespass affidavits for properties like Crystals, the abandoned Crystals, that has trouble written all over it. And we might even work with the business owners to, the property owners, to put some barricades in some of those private lots. We're creating a plan to address tailgating, cruising, parking on abandoned properties, and issue in the end zones, which I talked about because of the pop-up events. We've notified a lot of businesses already. The mayor and has done a real good job of the messaging. We've reached out to the business owners, the hotels, the bars, the restaurants, and we're starting to message to our citizens. For those of y'all that have our Facebook page, once again, messaging is so important. The rules of the beach went out last week, and it was titled 3 Beaches in 1 Community. And all 3 mayors, all 3 city managers, and all 3 beach police chiefs have basically said, come visit, but obey the law or we're going to take enforcement action. And that's kind of the message we put out every year, especially here in this city. But we're putting it out from April 1st all the way through to Labor Day. And we're making a consistent message throughout the year because, guys, we still got Memorial Weekend, July 4th weekend, and I'm concerned about some other things that I'll tell you about here shortly. I'm concerned about some milestones. I still got to get through Memorial Weekend before this event. We're tracking and noting every vacant property or abandoned property with any parking like Crystals. Next slide, please. That's just one photograph. Concerns and potential issues. Next slide, please. Okay, these are some issues and concerns we got why we think we're going to be packed. 5,000 to 10,000 people have been showing up for this event. We think it might be bigger. And then that on top of our already slam packed beach crowd for any weekend from March through October. It's slammed out there anyway. You add 15,000 college kids to that, and that's what we're expecting. And there's some reasons. Florida's fully open with no statewide mandates. We've gotten online chatter through our intel sources, through my intel detectives that people, Oklahoma, Texas is open, but as far away from as Michigan, Virginia are coming to this event. The event takes place on Juneteenth, which those of you will know is the African American Independence Day, and it's being called a culture and preservation event. It's Freedom Day or Emancipation Day in the Black community. The event is being advertised across all social media platforms and will potentially draw a large crowd. Chatham County and Savannah doesn't have near the number of residents we have. We have 1 million plus, and we are the epicenter of that with our bars, our beach, and our beautiful city. Every weekend, like y'all know what we're up against every weekend. On top of that, we got a large potential population, and the word is that we're going to start drawing people from South Florida for this event and from Atlanta. So, and the big concern I told you I was going to talk about, several high-profile civil rights cases will be in the spotlight. The word on the street is that the Derek Chauvin trial in Minnesota should end in Minneapolis somewhere beginning of May. So that's going to play a part. And then we had another shooting in Minnesota last night. So we're very concerned about that. So really there is an extra milestone that I got to get past that myself and every sheriff and police chief in every metropolitan area is concerned about. And that's the Chauvin trial, the Breonna Taylor trial, the Ahmaud Arbery trial in St. Mary's. A lot of these things are playing into it. On top of just the climate in the last year between policing and the minority community, I'm concerned about it. And also, just a quick note, you know, we mobilized the whole department 4 times last year, mobile field force. If somebody would have told me that up before 2019, I would have laughed at you. But we had 1,000 to 1,200 people for Black Lives Matter protests in Latham Plaza. Now they were very easy to work with. They were great to work with and nonviolent and very cooperative. But the fact that we had 1,000 to 1,200 people, that makes it one of the bigger events in Northeast Florida. So we have that potential. We also mobilized for a second one. We mobilized for the third one, which was a Back to Blue rally. And then we mobilized for the fourth one, which was a dual Neptune Beach, Atlantic Beach, BLM/protest march, but it got rained out due to thunderstorms. So to say that we are exempt and we're not Minneapolis or New York or LA, I think would be a little naive. So I'm very concerned about the Chauvin trial ending in about May-ish, as is every police chief, highway patrol chief, and sheriff in the country. We're worried about paid parking. We expect to see fights and arguments over parking and people parking wherever they can on sidewalks, lots. We're even worried about people starting to park in Latham Plaza. Then we got to tow them out there, tell them out of there. All it's going to take is 4 or 5 cars to start parking there. Everybody pulls in and we got a problem. So that's just some of the concerns and potential issues. What's not on here is our homicide rate, and I think Mr. Jansen, Councilman Jansen can back me up on this. We lead the state in the top 1, 2, or 3 in per capita homicides in the 3rd most populous state in the country, 4th most populous state. And what I'm worried about is a gang member from Jacksonville, which we do get, coming out here and whistling or putting their hands on one of these college-age females. They slap them or they yell back, or one of their male friends yells back, and one of our gang members pulled out a gun and started shooting. Very concerned about the handgun violence, the potential, because they've had them at Tybee before. Now you put it with some hardcore gang members in Jacksonville with a high homicide rate. It's just very, I'm not alarmed, I'm just concerned. Next slide, please. Okay, predictions. This is based on our intel, and this is our best guess as of today. We expect between 5,000 and 10,000 people, maybe 15,000. Peak attendance will be on Saturday. Traffic will be extremely heavy, with drivers looking for parking and people cruising 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Street. Traffic will be affected by drivers stopping for attention. There'll be fights over parking spots. There'll be a mixture in crowds between college, vacationers, beach, local, event participants, Jacksonville residents, and potential gang members. We're looking for a large amount of arrests and a large increase for calls for service for police, fire, and rescue departments. Next slide, please. This is a video. This is a still of a video. Tybee Island, I believe in 17. The beach was destroyed. 1st Street was, their 1st Street was trashed. They had to bring in a front end loader. As a matter of fact, the police and some city employees started going down there picking up the mess, and a bunch of tourists went to the local Publix or wherever and bought trash bags, and a bunch of the tourists that came in helped clean up the beach after. And there's a video that starts off with the still. Next slide, please. This is some of the messaging that we came up with. This basically says some of the rules, and this is the best way to stay out of trouble with the police. And we have been messaging this. I believe I really am happy with our messaging. It's been very effective. One thing I do want to add, and next slide, please. Before I take questions, there is some good news. I'm getting people calling me, do I leave town? I'm getting crazy comments or questions. What I tell my people is, and the only way I can put it to you plainly, because I'm a plain talking guy, is I suggest everybody kind of back it down a notch or two. There's no room to panic. We are prepared as we can be. We're preparing more daily. I think we'll come out of this okay. I am concerned, but I'm not panicked. I think we'll do well. We've done a good job preparing and discussing this with everybody involved. And I just want to back down the rhetoric and cool down the rhetoric a little, because we're not there yet. We're not at Broken Arrow or whatever you want to call it. We're fine, we're prepared, and we'll be prepared. There's some good news. We are very good at dealing with large crowds. We deal with 50,000 people out here with 15 or 20 officers, the same way other police departments have 100 or 200 officers out. We do it with 15 or 20 officers. So we are very good at crowd control, and we'll have double or triple that out every day. We're real experienced with it. And I was warned about mutual aid. Get the right kind of officer that come in here and can talk to people and can handle themselves and take enforcement action if necessary. We have an excellent experience with hurricanes and special event planning because of our influx of people and our storms that we've had. We have an excellent planning cycle. We have a routine down. We know what are our pressure points, when we're going to be busiest, what days of the week, what hours of the day, where our vulnerable areas are, like Crystal's parking lot. We got a great reputation with our mutual aid agencies. Like I said, I've talked to the sheriff's assistant, two-star chief at JSO. I've also talked to the colonel of the highway patrol, the other beaches chiefs, and they are very confident that we're going to set everybody up for success. So that's kind of our advantages, and I think we do it really well, and we've done it a lot with special events where we've proven we can pull off large special events. You know, we're a full service agency. I have 70 trained mobile field force officers that have deployed 4 times last year, which is pretty good. I have a full SWAT team, tactical unit. I got lots of experienced officers, experienced intel detectives. They know how to get on social media. They know how to really drill down and get that information. We've partnered with ATFs on board, DEAs on board, NCIS is on board, FBI is on board. So we've already had meetings with all of them. And really the last thing I'll add is, I'll say it again, the unified message from the 3 mayors and from the 3 city managers has been absolutely a steamroller for us in a good way. It has forced the promoters to come to the table. It has got us all on the same page as a community, not just the city of Jack's Beach, but the other 2 beaches cities. And as a county, there's been no stray messaging where someone would get confused because one elected official said this, another elected official said that. We have been consistent from the beginning. This is not a permitted event. We have been consistent from the beginning, obey the rules, and you can come here. We've been consistent from the beginning of, here's what we expect from you as promoters. Here are the rules for festivals and for behavior. So I'll turn it over to questions and any comments from the mayor or Mike, or questions from me. But really the messaging has been a strong foundation. This is not about putting cops on corners. It's about solving problems as the beach is, which I think we're good at. So there's my 2 cents. Mike?
Thank you, Chief Smith. I think we'll just dive right into questions. I see Councilmember Jansen has his hand raised, so we'll start with him.
I guess this question is more for you, Mike. I guess in a worst case scenario situation, I'm sure the conversation's been had that we can talk about a curfew if we need to enact something like that, or maybe the closure of the beaches, or a moratorium on alcohol sales in a last minute ditch effort to slow things down if necessary.
We've had those conversations impromptu. They're actually all options, obviously, that are on the table. But as Chief Smith said, we don't want to be panicked at this point in time, and I don't think we are. There was some thoughts about, and I think you heard Chief Smith say it, you know, people saying, should I leave town? Should I board things up, etc. And I think that there's a big portion of this community that takes the opposite approach. If people want to come to our neighborhood and have an event here or hang out here for the weekend, then that's fine. We don't have a problem with you coming and sitting shoulder by shoulder with us on the beach. But the residents and the business owners will also hold you in check and make sure that you play by the rules. And I think that the message is getting out to all of the business owners. And I think the business owners and the residents will make sure that people for the most part remain in check, which will be a good thing. So we have a lot of tools in our toolbox. Obviously, those are last actions of last resort, and I don't think we'll get to the point of needing those, but they're clearly there if we need them. Councilor Nichols, followed by Councilor Meza.
Mike, thank you. Appreciate all the effort y'all are putting into this. Chief Smith, great job. I have no doubt that y'all be ready for this event. With the numbers that we have, I try to let everybody know, we're concerned about it. We're used to handling events that bring 50,000, even more than that on a weekend, and we get more than that on a typical weekend. So, my main concern is with short-term rentals, and it'd be nice if they were all registered in our program, so then we'd have a way to communicate directly with them. But the company that we hired that is working with them, have we thought about communicating through them to get it out to people that are participating in short-term rentals?
We have, I know Director Ireland is on the call listening as well, but that's something that she and I just talked about a little bit earlier today, and I know the mayor and I have had the conversation with the chief over the past week or so. We are looking at producing some materials to go out to the STVRs within our jurisdiction. And for the most part, it's to push out that issue of the beach rules for the summer, not just for one particular event, but for anybody who's coming to our jurisdiction. We want them to have copies that go to the individuals before they ever get here into Jack's Beach. It would be great if it was taped up on the refrigerator door in the STVR, so that people who show up, they look at that bullet list and they say, these are all the do's and don'ts of having a vacation in the city of Jacksonville Beach or any of the 3 beach communities.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think the messaging has been good. I mean, we're a community that's open to everybody, and, we want it to be respectful, and, we do have to take into consideration the safety and security of the residents and the business owners in Jacksonville Beach. But we're open for business, and, we want people to come. We want people to be safe and enjoy themselves and spend money and come back. So, but I appreciate all the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Meza.
Yes, Chief Smith, Mike, good job on this. I agree. I think we'll be okay, but I do have concerns. And my business is right in downtown, and we've been open 6 years, and we deal with a lot of conflicts, especially spring and summer. And the concern right now that has been shared with me, not just by my employees, but other employees of other restaurants and bars, is the parking. Are they going to be safe walking around? Are they going to have to park far away? There's going to be a shuttle. At the end of the night, most of these people are walking around with $200, $300, $500 in cash at the end of the night. So that's their concern right now, and I'm just trying to share with you, Chief, just to keep you in the loop of what some of these bartenders and wait staff has been telling me. The second thing is, I know I have a picture. I don't know why I haven't showed you guys, but about a month ago, there was 2 Jeeps on the parking here at the Ritz parking lot. They were blaring music. I think these Jeeps had maybe 5 speakers. They were loud, block traffic. And I know you're going to have officers all over the area. How are you guys going to proceed if you guys have multiple situations around Jack's Beach? Because I know we're going to face problems at our businesses when we're denying people for not having the proper dress code. And I've called PD before where people trying to get physical. How are we going to handle the mass influx of calls on this weekend?
It's hard for me to answer hypotheticals, but I can answer generally. We're hopefully, we are going to have plenty of people down in the box. I'm going to have all 70 of my people down in downtown and probably with some mutual aid officers from Daytona Beach because they're familiar with dealing with spring break crowds and stuff. So we will be there when you call. Now, traffic is going to be horrendous. We're planning on getting around on ATVs, even possibly transporting prisoners to the forward booking area in ATVs. Traffic is going to be a no-go. Parking is going to be a no-go. It's going to be a mess. If you need us, we will be there. The only thing I can tell you is, and this kind of goes with Mr. Jansen's question, you know, we have a tropical storm near miss, and we got a category 5 coming straight at us. And we have a whole menu of options when we deal with hurricanes, from the near miss on a tropical storm to a category 5 coming straight at us. We will have a menu of options, everything from it's a rainy weekend and nobody shows up and there's 10 people on the beach to it's the busiest 4th of July or busiest event we've ever seen. All the way up to civil disturbance, we will have those menu of options. Now, can I guarantee anybody's safety? Of course, I'm not going to sit here and do that, y'all. I would lose all credibility if I guaranteed everybody was going to be safe. Am I guaranteed nobody's going to commit any crimes or pull a gun or get hurt? I can't guarantee that. And I think I would lose credibility with y'all if I did. All I can tell you is we are prepared to mitigate it as much as humanly possible, knowing that one of our shootings a few years ago, before this council came got elected, was on the boardwalk, and an officer was there in 8 to 10 seconds. He heard the gunshots, and a bunch of officers were right there on First Street, and they still shot right in front of us. And the officers went on scene 10 seconds later. So that kind of tells you what we're up against. All I can tell you is we have a contingency for everything, and we will draw from that menu of contingencies all the way up from 10 people on the beach to nothing going on in a nor'easter, up to closing the causeways and closing the bars and declaring a curfew, similar to Miami Beach. But Mr. Meza, to answer your question, we're seeing historic crowds anecdotally now on busy weekends because of post-COVID, everybody trying to get outside. There's been a paradigm shift that people aren't staying home and watch TV anymore. They're getting out and doing stuff. So we think we're seeing the biggest crowds in a very long time. And it's going to be 4th of July, a busy 4th of July. That's what we're looking at. And that I can almost guarantee you that. And that's all the answers I can give you right now. I hope that helps.
Okay, and just one last thing to Mayor Hoffman. I know you've sat down with Mike and talked about the curfews, and Corey Nichols brought it up. Personally, we will be fine if you guys were to set up a curfew last minute in case things get out of hand. Just want you to know that some of these businesses will be behind you and supported if it comes to it. So just letting you guys know. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Hoffman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Meza. And I just want to, it's too early to start commending people, but I do want to commend Chief Smith for jumping right on top of this once we started getting information about the event, putting a team together and doing a lot of homework even before the public started to get wind of this event. So I'm going to say event because although it's promoting itself as a festival, this is a guerrilla marketing tactic that is just designed to bring a lot of people into one community. And that's, you know, kind of that first messaging wave that we had to really get out there to our community, and it worked very well. So we've got a really good team on it. As far as the steps and procedures, law enforcement wise, I trust that team. I trust the resources that have been pulled together to specifically handle this weekend. But quite frankly, it's every weekend. It's even just 2 weeks ago when we had really great weather, we are already seeing record crowds. So some of the things we're doing right now, we need to do anyway. And the rules that you saw come out, I hope that you guys all would share them across your Facebook pages and things like that, because these are things. We had a really weird year, last year, and we need to kind of get back into normal operations of the beaches. I know you guys know we started the downtown hospitality business owner meeting. It couldn't have come at a better time. Our second meeting of that group was the day after the 3 mayors received the briefing from the police department. So we were able to provide them, not quite at this level of detail, but provide all of the business owners at the same time a briefing and let them ask questions. And we will have 2 more of those meetings between now and Orange Crush Weekend. But again, quite frankly, we also have Memorial Day and 4th of July and all sorts of other big weekends that are going to be impacting the beaches. We also had a separate call with the hotels at the north end of the beach. So we're trying to be ahead of the game to communicate openly and effectively, but also know that this is a fluid situation. But I think for our part, for the council, for city staff, et cetera, communicating with the residents and with the business owners is the important role to play at this point. And the other thing I've responded to every citizen email, and at every one of them, I provide a link to our police department Facebook page and to our city's Facebook page, because we need people to start going to the source for the most up-to-date information for this and everything else. So if you guys can join me in doing that, I think that will help overall. Now with hurricanes, with any other future events, as we're trying to get consistent messaging out to our community.
Thank you, Mayor. Does anyone have any more questions for Chief Smith? And as this continues to evolve and change, we may obviously do additional briefings with council between now and the end of June when the event is scheduled. We'll just see what changes between now and the next week or two and provide updates as necessary. Thank you, Chief Smith. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll dive into item 4 on the agenda, which is board appointment process review. We've provided you some information as a little bit of background. I know that as we got into the month of December and with several new council members on board, there was a little bit of confusion as to the interview and nomination process for candidates for our different boards. One of the things that we wanted to do was allow council the opportunity to talk a little bit and see if there's any changes that they wanted to make to the processes that we currently have in place. Based on the comments that I've heard from council members over the last several months, it seems to me that the area of focus you may want to take a look at is with regards to the actual interview process itself. I know that those have been typically held in person and during the work day, and we don't always have a high rate of attendance by the sitting council members. And then the second would be the actual appointment process. I think when we had the conversation at a council meeting, a couple council members suggested, was it possible to have a conversation in a pre-meeting or in a briefing prior to bringing candidates forward for consideration. So with that, I'll open it up to the council for discussion. We do also have Lori Scott, our city clerk, on the line as well, and we will try as best to answer your questions and help assist you in making decisions on any changes to this process. And the first hand I see raised is Councilmember Golden.
Thank you, Mike. So I really think it's important that we look at maybe changing when we do these interviews. These people are going to be serving on our boards in the evening, and why not interview them in the evening when it may be more possible for the other council members to attend? Because I mean, I'm able to attend sometimes, you know, with my work schedule, but I mean, I can understand how it's hard for the other council members to attend. And I really think it's important for the council members to have the opportunity to hear what the candidates have to say. Just, you know, trying to, I mean, just looking at another council member's notes or whatever is just not sufficient. And let's see, I had another point. What was it? Yeah, I can't remember my other point, but anyway, I think that's the main thing that I think we need to do is try to make these interviews be at a time when the other council members have a better chance of being able to be there.
Thank you. Councilor Nichols, followed by Mayor Hoffman.
I believe we've done in the past, but is there anything that precludes us from doing these meetings virtually? It seems like it'd be easier on the on the candidates. And, especially if we're going to do it during the day, it's a lot easier to take out some time during the day on a virtual call than hit a meeting during the day.
I don't believe there is anything that restricts you from having this as a virtual meeting. The state statute with regards to in-person meetings is specific to voting items or taking action. So as long as you're interviewing the candidates, I believe you would be okay. You just couldn't make any decisions with regards to the candidates you interviewed during those virtual calls. You'd have to wait until you're in person. Mayor Hoffman.
Thank you. I've said this before. I think with this council, we've come a long way in this process, and I'm really, I think we're getting really close to a nicely finessed process. But I can't put my fingers on it right now, but some of the write-up of the process was a little more reactive, waiting for an opening, then doing the interviews. And I think we are taking a more proactive stance at this point. I would like to see us do pick a time of year where we're doing the interviews so that we're taking in applications all year. We do the interviews perhaps right after we approve the budget. And that way, I think we've gotten almost everyone onto an end of the calendar year term end. So if we have a bunch of interview qualified candidates at that point, between the interviews and the meeting where we do the appointments, we can have a briefing where we go through and put together our slate of appointments. Then we have a meeting, we appoint them all. That'll make the process a lot smoother. As we've all gone through it, it's been a little wonky. As long as I've been on the council, it has been. So I think that we do, a week where maybe we have 3 interview times, and maybe we do them at different times of the day, and people can sign up for what their availability is. I like the idea of keeping them on Zoom, but maybe we do a lunchtime, maybe we do an early afternoon or late afternoon and an early evening, and people can sign up for whatever the time is appropriate. There's always the opportunity that someone needs to resign from a board midterm, and we can do a midterm interview if we need to, but if we do this right, we should have a list of qualified candidates that we can move into that position, because we're keeping their applications good for 2 years. So I don't see any reason why we would need to do an emergency interview or an emergency appointment, but we certainly can if we need to. Or I guess the appointment would be kind of somewhat emergency, but the interview should be done once a year.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any other comments from council? Councilmember Stokes.
A lot of really good ideas. My biggest one is I fully support a discussion and a briefing ahead of the council meeting where we're going to vote. It was after just coming on to council in November and then doing these board appointments in December, we never got to discuss any of these individuals. And then to do it during motions and having to motion to discuss and table and retable or postpone, and it just, to me, it was a slightly messy process just because we didn't have the chance to discuss any of these people, and these are very big appointments. CRA adjustment, I'm forgetting another one, planning, yeah, and to not have the ability to discuss ahead of time in a sunshine open forum was very tough. So that's the one I fully support over everything, is get a discussion ahead of time where we can do that.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Hoffman, I see your hand is still up. Is that a carryover? Okay. So if I synthesize each of the individual comments I just heard, how do you all feel about picking a week right after the budget adoption to pick multiple times and days of the week for holding maybe 1 in-person and 2 virtual interviews, followed up with a council briefing in November to discuss the process, followed by the appointments in December? I see thumbs up and heads nodding.
Can we ask if that works for the clerk, that timing?
We can ask her. Ms. Scott, does that timing work for you and your staff?
long way around. Absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of excited about the way that, it's got a flow to it. I just want to make sure we have enough candidates when we get to that point. So, heavy on the advertising, word of mouth, that would be appreciative. But I think it sounds wonderful. I especially like the fact that we have interview slots where they can sign up for, they can pick whatever is most convenient for them. So absolutely, it works for everybody, I think. So.
What we will do at this point is get a week that we send out to the council members to see what your availability would be in advance. Because clearly, if we have, let's say, one virtual meeting in the evening, one virtual meeting in the afternoon, and a lunch interview scheduled with some of the candidates, we'd want to make sure that we could have not just a majority, but all council members participate if possible. So we'll start taking a look at the calendars for the month of September and October and start floating some dates out to you to make sure that we pick a week with days and times that are suitable to a majority of council. Does that sound like a good idea as a starting point? Okay, fantastic.
Thank you.
Other comments on the board appointment process or any other thoughts? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 5, which is Charter Review Phase 2 proposed schedule. As you may be aware, a couple months ago, we had our outside counsel, Cliff Shepard, present to council on his recommendations for how we should move forward with the Charter Review Phase 2, which is the full-blown charter review. And again, I think it's been in excess of a decade since the city of Jacksonville Beach has actually done that process. If you take a look in the packet of information that's been provided to you, we've actually laid out a calendar of meetings that would take place between now and the end of the calendar year that we believe would get us through the charter review process. What we wanted to do with council was A, make sure that you are comfortable with the dates that are being selected for the meetings. You'll notice that there's a handful of them that are basically supplanting council briefings, which I felt was adequate to do, given the fact that we are on a time schedule with the charter review. We need to make sure that we have this wrapped up and language drafted before May 1st for transmittal to the supervisor of elections. The second thing was we wanted to make sure with council that you are okay with doing these meetings in a virtual platform. I think that that's the easiest way to involve Mr. Shepard in the process. And also the council I know has thought that this process has worked pretty well so far with holding our equivalents of briefings and workshops from a virtual perspective. So with that, I'll open it up to any comments or thoughts that council might have on the schedule, the days and times, and the method of conducting the meetings. Mayor Hoffman.
The schedule looks good to me, and I think Cliff Shepard did a really good job kind of explaining his thoughts and on the process. So I have a lot of confidence in that. Have we looked at the plan for the budget meetings though? Because I know August is a very busy time for that. Have we tried to make sure we have enough room for everything? You're muted.
Yes, we have. And I believe we're still good on dates and times.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else with feedback on days, times, and format? Councilor Meza, followed by Councilor Golding.
Looking at the dates in August, I know that Thursday, and are we doing these virtually or are we meeting in person?
These would be conducted virtually.
Okay, perfect. Then I'm able, yeah, I'll be out of town, my sister's wedding, but if it's virtually, it's perfect.
Okay. Councilor Golding.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm fine with all the dates, and I do like the idea of doing the meetings virtually. So I think that'd be great. Thank you.
Anyone else with feedback on that item? If not, I think we're going to be locked and loaded and ready to go with our first meeting here at the end of April. coming up in the next 2 weeks. Okay. With that, we'll jump onto item 6, Florida League of Cities Policy Committees. You may recall at our last regular council meeting, Councilmember Golding initiated or indicated to the rest of council that the Florida League of Cities is taking applications for elected officials as well as appointed officials to sit on their different policy committees. There's a total of 5 committees. They're made up of elected officials and appointed officials and Florida League staff representation from across the entire state of Florida. And they participate in a series of meetings, which usually take place in Orlando, in order to help identify the Florida League of Cities priorities that they use as talking points and lobbying points with elected officials for the upcoming legislative session. For this year, Councilmember Golding has signed up again for the Municipal Administration Policy Committee, which is the same committee that I'm on, but we still have 4 other committees that if elected officials wanted to participate on, they could certainly choose to do so. What I wanted to do tonight was put this information to you with a little bit more formality and with a little bit more background information, and see if there was a desire from any of the other elected officials to sign on to the Florida League for this particular event. If you aren't prepared to make a decision tonight, that's okay. Feel free to reach out to either me or Chris Wright if you're interested in registering, and we can see about helping you get on the individual committee that you'd like to participate in. Does anyone have any questions with regards to the policy committees or the Florida League and how they operate? And the first thing I'm seeing is Mayor Pro Tem Nichols, followed by Councilor Stokes.
What are the other committees that are available?
The other committees are, hold on one second, I've got to go to that part of the packet. Let's see, the other committees are Finance, Taxation, and Personnel, Land Use and Economic Development, Transportation and Intergovernmental Relations, and Utilities, Natural Resources, and Public Works.
Well, I don't mind. I think I might know a little bit about the transportation stuff, but I do think it's important that we participate on these as a community, and you know, I'm willing to be involved with that one.
Which one, the transportation?
Yes. And which was the last one with Public Works?
Utilities, Natural Resources, and Public Works. And the description on that is coastal management, energy, environmental and wetlands permitting, hazardous and toxic wastes, recycling, solid waste collection and disposal, stormwater, wastewater treatment and reuse, water management, and water quality and quantity.
And what was the description of the transportation?
That one is transportation and highway safety, as well as aviation, affordable housing, homelessness, billboards, building codes, charter schools, rights of way, and veterans affairs.
Sounds good. Yeah, the transportation one, I would not have a problem participating in that. And you know, if we don't get the other ones filled up, I might be able to do the other one as well.
Well, the meetings all take place at the same time in Orlando.
Gotcha. Yep.
So basically, each person can only be on one committee. Councilmember Stokes, followed by Councilmember Meza.
I went ahead and signed up today. My first choice was, let me go to it, was the land use and economic development. I'd really like to get on that one. I've got a little bit of background in land usage. So I feel like I could be a good asset for that one. So that would be my first choice. I had to note all 5 of them in order. So I've got them all on there, but I really would just want to do the land use. And I mean, I'd be willing to do something else, but I feel like I could be a big asset for that one. So.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Councilor Meza.
Chet Stokes picked the one that was number 1 for me, the land use and economic development. The second one that I was that caught my eye was the finance, taxation, and personnel.
Fantastic. I would also point out that while participating in the policy committee is a good exercise and gets Jack's Beach commingling with other communities, but just as importantly is the acquaintances that you will meet from other jurisdictions from across the state of Florida. And having those contacts and understanding what's happening in their communities and how they're handling particular issues and giving you a point of contact to talk to people during issues is a pretty invaluable resource to rely upon during the course of the entire year. I think Council Member Golding found that there were a handful of elected officials from other portions of the state that she was able to contact on other various issues during the course of the last year, just to bounce different things off of to see how they're handling things. I know I do it with the appointed officials from other jurisdictions as well. So hopefully this is something that as you go through this year's legislative policies, you'll find to be a positive, not just on one front, but on many fronts. Okay. If we don't have anything else on that particular item, that brings us back to the first two items, the future briefing topics and committee assignment reports. Let's go with number two first, and that is the committee assignment reports. I know that a couple of months ago, several of the elected officials were basically appointed by the rest of council to be representatives for things that were happening around the area or around the state. And this would be an opportunity for those individuals to report out to the rest of council if there have been any meetings or any actions that have taken place, say in the last month or two, that you feel that the other 7 need to know, the other 6 need to know about. So with that, I'm not sure if anyone has any information they want to share with regard to that. I see Mayor Pro Tem Nichols has his hand raised.
I attended the TPO meeting this past week, and it looks like the funding got approved for Penman, for the crossings on A1A. That funding got approved, and there was one other one. I'm gonna have to get back to you on that because my note card is not in front of me. But two A1A, 2 Jacksonville, City of Jacksonville Beach vicinity projects were approved.
Excellent. Councilmember Jansen.
I've yet to attend a pension board meeting, and the next one is in May. So as soon as that happens, I'll be able to report back. But as of right now, there hasn't been a meeting.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor Stokes.
Okay, I've had, I was thankful to do some of the Blue Zones work, and I've had 2 calls. Was in the midst of preparing a little write-up when the last couple weeks kind of happened, so I'm a little behind and I apologize. But I talked with Nadja Burnett. Apologize if I mispronounced her name. She's with the Blue Zones National Food Policy Team. Talked with her about restaurants, grocery stores, kind of just the food scene in Jacksonville Beach and how that relates to the Blue Zones policies. And then I had a really fun call, and let me pull up this guy. I got to speak with Dan Burden, which if you haven't heard of him, he's got more than 40 years of experience in 3,500 communities, creating more livable, bikeable, and walkable communities. Really, I don't know, I was kind of, I didn't really know who I was, having the call with, because she kind of gave me 5 names, and then I had the call with this guy, and I kind of was like, looked him up. He's like, well, I looked you up, and I was like, well, I'm looking you up too. And then when I found out who he was, I was like, oh wow, this guy's been all over the country. And he was really thrilled with some of the projects that we will be undertaking, things that we've already discussed, the greenways, creating better transportation outside the vehicle for members of the community to go around. the community. So I've got a really interesting write-up for him and a lot about what blue zones can help us with from both a legislative policy side and a lot of the grunt work that they do. They do a lot of research for us, which is great. And then they kind of, they don't, obviously don't do any of the legislative policy stuff, but they do a lot of research for us and then try to help us get these things off the ground and getting grant money and finding things that can help this project as a whole. And overall, the Blue Zones hasn't fully gotten kicked off in Jacksonville, but it is a, I don't want to give it a percentage, but they think it's a really good chance that Jacksonville is going to be a Blue Zones project here in the coming next 2 years. They're doing all the background research and they're really excited about what we have here. So anyway, that's what I got about that. I'm going to do a write-up. Apologize for the delay. We've just been a little busy. So as soon as things kind of calm down, I'll have a big write-up from Dan Burden and then a little bit from Nadja on the food policy stuff.
Excellent, thank you. Mayor Hoffman.
Just wanted to follow up with, and I love that we're doing this, by the way. Thank you guys all for serving in these roles and providing us with the update. Corey, is the second project potentially the median on Beach Boulevard near the museum?
No, that was not on there, but I am following up with that. And I was, I know that they advertised it for design services, DOT did. So that project is going forward.
Just further down the road.
Yeah, so it's probably usually through the design phase, you're looking at about 18 months. So probably about 24 to 28 months from construction. The other one, so the A1A 2nd Street pedestrian crossing was the first one. And the other one is that they approved a large feasibility study for the East Coast Greenways that will tie like all the beaches together, which I mean, I think is fantastic. I know we're talking about tying our parks together and everything, but just incorporating all the beaches communities. If you could jump on a bike and ride a trail where you don't have to be next to traffic to connect to all of our parks throughout the whole community, I think it would just be amazing.
And that ties right in with Blue Zones. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Nichols.
I was just that was exactly what I wanted to say. Thanks for leading me into it, Mayor Hoffman.
And we will have I believe it's a resolution coming to you at our next meeting, a joint resolution. I think the 3 beach communities are all proceeding with them to be considered as a joint application for TPO for that Greenway study. So you'll be seeing that resolution shortly for consideration. Mayor Hoffman's hand is still raised, but that's a holdover. Councilmember Golding, followed by Councilmember Meza.
Thank you. Just real quick, Chet. Dan Burden's name is a very familiar name here in Jacks Beach because back in 2005, I went to a Walkable Communities presentation he did in Jacksonville, and then he did it again in St. Augustine. And in 2006, and our city manager at the time, we got him George Forbes to attend that. And when he attended that, he talked to Dan Burden about coming to Jacks Beach to do the visioning in 2007. So Dan Burden came to Jacks Beach and did a walking tour and walked around the downtown and said, here are some things that need to be improved to make the downtown more walkable. And then he got us connected with the group that helped us through the visioning process. So Dan Burden has some history with Jacks Beach, and he's amazing. He is absolutely amazing. If you can ever go to one of his presentations, you'll be blown away.
He does. We talked about that, and that was his last visit to Jacks Beach. So I was able to kind of fill him in on some of the changes and stuff that have happened since then. But really cool to talk with him about that and how he had done the 07 plan and worked on that a little bit just with some of the sidewalk projects and et cetera. So yeah, that was really kind of cool that he knew who we are about that. Sorry to interrupt. Just thought that was cool too. Thanks.
Yeah, no, he's amazing. He's the one that I think he may have encouraged us to do the Penman Road study at the same time. He may have been involved in that a little bit, so we have that drawing that was done back then. I wanted to mention to everybody that I attended a webinar by Smart Growth America, and they do a study, and this study that came out was the Dangerous by Design study. You guys may have heard of it, but it just came out, and it's focused on pedestrian, bicycle, and automobile safety, but the focus is really about how dangerous our streets are in the United States and how design can make our streets better for everybody that use those streets. So I would encourage you, I shared the information with Mike. I don't know if anybody would be interested in it, but when I sent it to Mike, there is a link to the webinar. It was extremely interesting because they talk about how the design of our streets can actually help to address speed issues and safety for bicycles and pedestrians, which is something that when we do this urban trail throughout our community, and I know all of you probably are getting the same types of complaints that I get from citizens about speeding through the neighborhoods. So I think that the Dangerous by Design, the other thing I wanted to mention, Florida is #1 in their study for the worst state for pedestrians and bicyclists and for street, just street safety in general. So that's a real shame, but it's the truth. And so I wanted to mention that to everybody, because if you want, Mike can share the link to the webinar for you. It's like a 1-hour webinar, and it was really, really interesting. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention was several months ago, Mike and I met with the North Florida Land Trust about the Small Islands project. And of course, you all know that now they're fundraising to try to raise money for the Small Islands project. I would just encourage you all to continue to try to share that information so that we can encourage people to make donations to the fund to help preserve the small islands in South Jacks Beach. I don't know if there's anything that you want to share about that, Mike. I don't really know if there's a whole lot to update at this point, other than they're still in the fundraising process, but just wanted to share that with everyone as well.
Yeah, they're still in the fundraising, and haven't heard much from the FLT over, I guess, maybe the last month or so. So my guess is they're calling their donors hot and heavy and trying to raise the funds necessary to move forward.
Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is Penman Road. So just wanted to share with everybody that this whole process of trying to get the Penman Road study started has been extremely painful because it's just taking forever. They did the RFP I think they closed the RFP for it like last May, and they got all, I think it was like 13 proposals. It's taken them forever to pick a consultant, and I think that they're now in the last phases of finalizing the contract with the consultant. So I'm hopeful that once that gets done, then we can see the Penman Road study get started. And then I hope that they have committed to having some community meetings so that the community will be involved in what's happening, or the direction that things go with Penman Road. But yeah, it's painful.
Yes, Sandy, procurement, it's procurement, the city of Jacksonville is way far behind, and it's just challenging to get anything through. But I keep asking about it and keep trying to push it. So I appreciate what you're doing too.
Councilor Meza.
I have a question for Mayor Pro Tem Nichols on the crossing that got approved for A1A. Is that the one on 2nd Avenue North?
It should be, yes. The A1A, yes.
Yeah, I remember talking about that in 2014 on one of the campaigns, and I've had multiple close calls with pedestrians walking that area.
Yep.
So I'm pretty happy. Thanks. Appreciate you.
If there's no other report outs, we will jump back to item number 1, future briefing topics, and see if there's any consensus on specific topics to bring forward at a later date and time. Any thoughts from council? And I see Council Member Golding.
Yeah, so I was approached. I think all of you probably know Coach Brown from Fletcher High School, who's with the Marine Coastal Club. And I think that it's pretty timely that we would be discussing this tonight. But he has done a lot over the last 5 years with his students and with other volunteers to plant sea oats in our dunes to try to bring our dunes back post Matthew and Irma. In the last 5 years, he and his students and volunteers have planted 11,000 sea oats in Jack's Beach. He approached me because he's really concerned about the amount of people we're going to have coming to Jack's Beach this summer, whether it's July 4th or whether it's Orange Crush, or whether it's Memorial Day or whatever. And he recently did a planting east of Margaritaville, and he was out there. Of course, he's with the Beach and Sea Turtle Patrol, so he's out there a lot. He sees what's going on. And he said he was really upset to see that there were people in the dunes on top of the sea oats that they had just planted less than a week ago. And so he would like, a few years ago after Matthew and Irma, he put, with the help of Neptune Beach, he put PVC pipe posts and rope along the toe of the dune in Neptune Beach for the entire length of Neptune Beach, along with some signs hanging from the rope that just basically say, stay off the dunes. And he found that to be very helpful in keeping people off the dunes. In Jack's Beach, all he was able to do was just the signs on the H stands, in front of the dunes. And I can personally say, and he even said himself, that that is not very effective. People still get in the dunes, still go in the dunes. And he would like to work with the city of Jack's Beach in whatever way we can. He's willing to offer tons of student manpower to help put these PVC pipe posts, into the ground and string the rope and put up some signs that basically just say, stay off the dunes. And at a minimum, he would love to do that before we get into the crazy, crowds, crazier than what we have right now. And the area that he would like to see covered at a minimum would be like 2nd Avenue South up to 8th Avenue North, which I think we would all agree that's probably the most heavily used areas of our beach. But long term, he'd like to see us do something like that the entire length of the beach, because they have planted sea oats in other areas besides the main area there. But he would like to ask us to consider, he said that he has some funds he could put towards purchase of PVC pipe for those, for the fencing or whatever, but would like to ask the city of Jack's Beach to consider helping financially with doing something like that. And he's ready to do something right away. So I wanted to put that out there because personally, I would like to see us do something like that. I think we've needed something like that for a while. And I would like to ask the rest of the council to support something like that as well.
Seems like that would be a pretty good, a really easy GoFundMe to raise money for too. I don't know if they're looking into that.
Just a reminder, our conversation is just to see if this is something worthy of a future briefing. Is there a consensus to bring this one back for a future briefing topic? I'm seeing a majority of heads nod. Got it. We will schedule something to come back on this. Counselor Meza, followed by Counselor Stokes.
Yes, I think this could be a future briefing topic. I know this is about the kids live in Jack's Beach and in our local beaches here. It's been brought up to me by a couple of parents about high usage of drugs at Fletcher High and some of these teenagers overdosing. Um, I don't know how we could help mitigate the situation, but that's something that is a concern, especially when this teenager almost actually died and was brought back to life, and those drugs were bought and bought it at Fletcher High, from what I was told. And then the second thing, I was approached by a individual that works for the Jags, and they were trying to team up with the beaches and jagging up the city leading towards the draft and towards the opening season. I'm waiting on that email, and I think from what he briefly told me was they wanted to paint some of the murals in teal and leopard print and hype up the community for the NFL season. Hopefully that email comes to me today, if not tomorrow. But that's it.
So the first topic was drug use at Fletcher High School. Consensus to bring that one back? Or is that one better relinquished to the school board?
I don't think we have any jurisdiction over that.
And I know we don't have jurisdiction, but I think as a council and the people that live here at the beach deserve to be heard, and these kids deserve more than just, because the school board's not doing anything, and it's better to bring it up or at least move the needle forward to help these kids. I mean, from what I hear from these parents, it's getting real bad. I know it's a school board issue, but I think we should start getting involved, and that's just my personal opinion right now.
Not seeing a consensus on that one. How about jagging up the city? What he just indicated with the Jaguars coming into town. Consensus to bring that back once Mr. Meza gets the email about what they want to do more specifically. Seeing a few heads nod.
I mean, if they're requesting something, should talk about it.
So
Yeah,
just let us know when you get the email from the Jaguars and structure something accordingly on that.
Sounds good.
Counselor Stokes.
Yeah, just if we're gonna talk about, If we're gonna talk about the CO project, I'd like for it to be a little bit more encompassing on dune protection than just the Fletcher project. I just wanted to have that before we go into the briefing topic. We can talk about it further then, but just a little bit more, because when I was a kid, it was wooden fenced. So just, would like for the consideration to be more than just PVC, but we can talk about that further and then, thanks.
Okay. Counselor Dumont, followed by Counselor Golding.
Thank you. I was contacted by a constituent who wanted to have a memorial bench for his son who was killed, a 3-year-old boy who was killed, a Jacks Beach resident, on the east side of the dunes at one of the walkovers. We currently don't allow for that. I'm in the process of contacting Yvonne Calverley up in Atlantic Beach. They have a program, and I'm not sure how they're able to do it with environmental protection and turtles and all of that. So I'm trying to find out more information on the possibility of putting benches on the beach, having like a memorial bench on the beach. But what we could do, and he wasn't overly ecstatic about the idea of possibly putting them on the west side of the walkovers with the proper setbacks to private property and things like that within parameters. It's about 7 possibly max in the city to have benches on the west side on the public right of ways, but that would require an update to the Memorial Park ordinance.
Is there a consensus to revisit the memorial bench and tree program to include some alternate locations?
Like, isn't that already coming back to us? I know Jason was working on that specific item.
That is.
Okay, then yes, I support it.
Okay. Councilor Golding?
I just wanted to mention to Ms. Dumont that I've been in Atlantic Beach and I've seen the benches, and they tend to, the ones I've seen, I haven't seen any on the beach, but I've seen them on the west side of the dune, like at the beach, more at the beach access point. Is that where they're actually talking about on the dune itself?
He would like a bench to be able to sit on in the name of his son where he can look at the ocean. The picture that he sent me was one in the sand on the beach. Not, our dunes are now too high where you could put them on the west side of the dune and still be able to look at the ocean from the west side. And that is what optimally that would be what he would like to see. Like I said, I'm looking at Atlantic Beach to see what it is that they're doing. I've seen the picture. I have not gone up to their beach ends to check them out.
Yeah, I run up in that area, and the ones that I've seen, like I said, are on the west side of the dune, sort of at the beach end. And I would think that'd be a DEP issue. I'm not sure that DEP would be very willing to permit something like that, but
Right. And that's what I told him. That, it's beyond what we can do, but he specifically said there are some on the west, some on the east side of the dunes. I don't know if the ones on the east side of the dunes are grandfathered in. My conversation today with Atlantic Beach, he said that they are replacing some of those benches. So once you replace it, it wouldn't be grandfathered in anymore. So I'm just trying to find out more information as to how they are getting around the DEP by, being able to put those benches there. He would be willing to maintain the bench, shovel it out. If it gets covered in sand and all of that, he just would like a memorial bench to his son.
We've got that memorial program slated to come back at the briefing on the 26th. So we will just make sure this is an element that's incorporated into that discussion.
And then Mike, I just wanted to ask with regard to the fencing to protect the dunes, do you want me to get Mr. Brown in contact with you so that you can have some discussions in preparation for the next briefing where this would come before us?
Yeah, if he could give a little write-up of what exactly he would be looking for with regards to partnership. What's he looking for from the city of Jacksonville Beach? That would be fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you. And Mayor Pro Tem Nichols.
I wouldn't mind having the new CRA director attend one of our meetings to do an introduction, and so we can just kind of ask questions about, where that person sees the things going, and just so we can get face to face with that person.
I know she'll be in attendance at the joint meeting that we have coming up between the council and the CRA. But I think it would probably make sense, give her a couple weeks on the job at least, and then bring her back and give the council some of her thoughts, and then you can pepper her with questions.
Sure, I'd just like to get an introduction. Thank you.
Sounds good. Seeing no other hands raised, we'll go to the closeout of the meeting tonight. Two things for council. The first is just a reminder that at the next council meeting at 5:30, we're actually going to have the Cub Scouts Pack 15 Webelos. That will be here in City Hall from 5:30 to 6 o'clock. They're going to be attending the meeting as well. They're working on their Building a Better World adventure pin. So if any council members can make it from 5:30 to 6 to meet and greet with them in the council chambers, that would be fantastic. The second thing is to let council know that I will be going out of town starting the second half of this Friday afternoon and through the weekend. While I will be reachable by phone, I will be outside of Jax Beach, so there won't be anything that I can do if there's an emergency situation that requires immediate attention on the ground. So if there's something that requires immediate attention, please call Deputy City Manager Karen Nelson, and she'll be more than happy to help you out this weekend. That's everything that we've got, and that concludes our meeting right at 7 o'clock on the nose as scheduled. Councilmember Jansen, you had your hand raised. Did you have one final question?
Yeah, I've already volunteered with Chris Wright to be at the Weeblo meeting, so via email. So I'll be there for that. And then, on a lighthearted note for the mayor, Pablo Beach. Anywhere on that? Are we moving forward on Pablo Beach? Or?
It's been temporarily tabled due to other issues facing the city. But I like that you brought it up.
Well, that'll conclude our briefing for tonight. Thank you all, and we'll see you all next Monday night at 5:30 in Chambers with the meeting starting at 6 o'clock.